Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slowbeef. With me, of course, my good friend DV's Vacuum.
Hello, it's me, Jen, and I'm back. I can't, it's not even close. It's that level of octaves.
No, I've known him for a bit, you got it. My good friend Zoran Ronan.
Hi everyone.
This is my good friend Polahoko.
Hey everybody.
My good friend Turbo C.
Hey, I'm Gerbo C.
We're all just gonna talk as deep as we can and do our best Jim impression.
Ridiculous. All right, listen. Where we at? I gotta close the video because that's distracting. Anyway,
we're watching a secret Let's Play during this podcast recording. Everyone.
Yeah, only we get to watch it, not you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so anywho, listen, enough jibber jabber. We decided there's enough games of werewolf and stuff. Haruaki's got to get out of this. He's got to get out of this place, you know.
This whole thing is too wacky for him.
He's gotta break out of the whatever the fuck was happening last time. Some sort of cloud monster that wanted to destroy all of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the country.
Yeah, just Japan. Nowhere else.
Sure, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
But what the heck? Beyond that, I mean, the only way out is all the way in, meaning we have to get all 5 plot keys, according to the sheep, and we got to start collecting them from the beginning, which, if I recall correctly, was when we were getting our drink on with Chiami, and we had some options. And she's like, why would I invite like a guy to my place all alone and get drunk with him? And there are options like, you're really a killer, you're secretly in love with me, blah, blah, blah. But we get our first option unlocked to get the first key, and it is, who remembers?
All of them.
All of them at
all
once.
All of the above.
Before we actually get into it, though, I want to say my big problem with this entire part is that this first key is really exciting and a real emotional roller coaster and has lots of stuff happening in it. And then the rest of the 4 keys are just big info dumps that are mostly boring.
Yes.
One in particular is really bad.
Yeah, the last one was interesting, but it is very much an info dump as well.
Yeah, but this first one is like, the first thing, it takes place like in probably like a year of time from Haruaki's point of view.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying now, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that, especially, this, like, thematically is, like, the most interesting one, and probably, dramatically, maybe, is the word I'm looking for. Like, it should come for last, really. Like, it should be the climax of this key collection stuff.
So let's get into it. What happens?
Yeah. So once we remember everything, we remember the previous loops, and we know enough information to convey that to Chiemi. And in us telling her all of this information, she remembers that she has also been looping, and she is finally able to communicate with us like this like kami thing that she was trying to communicate to us many times before, where she has been looping. She has been looping longer than Haruaki has been looping. She has been looping many, many more times than he's been looping, and she had already like given up that she would be able to escape the looping.
So Haruaki figured this out because of all sorts of clues that she didn't know she was giving him throughout the loops. This is a common thing in this thing. Haruaki figures things out and doesn't tell us, the reader. But he just says, okay, I figured this out. And then...
I hate that, for the record, but, you know. I hate whenever, like, protagonists do, like, of these sorts of games do things without the input of it, and it happens in Police Knots, and I can't take it.
Like when he buys the toilet? I want to I want to make that decision myself.
Yeah, well, it should, like, present us maybe with, like, a choice or something to indicate that we, too, have figured it out before he tells us that he has figured it out without us.
I want the Dora Explorer kind of thing where he looks at me and asks if I've figured it out as well.
Yes.
Yeah, or at least, like, give me that little stupid quiz kind of multiple choice thing, you know, which comes later but is much, much worse.
Put the comic book panels together for the murder in the order that they happen.
But just, don't divorce me from the protagonist like that, okay? Don't play me like that. That's my only request. Danganronpa. No, anyway.
Yeah, but she basically said throughout the loops all sorts of things that she couldn't have known, or she didn't realize that she shouldn't have known in that loop.
Yeah. Which led us to believe that everyone was conscious that they were looping.
Right, but it's just her and Haruaki.
She thought that she was the only one who remembered the loops. And she tells us her entire story, how it all started for her.
Yeah, so apparently when she was looping, she was doing it for a while, and her loop start point was before we entered the village, and it was looping without us. And then eventually Haruaki came along as a protagonist, or as a character, I guess.
Her first change was Mako, actually. So.
Oh right, yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She says that she came back to Yasumizu because she had trouble finding a job outside. She was in her last year of college, and she started a job finding process, and she couldn't make it work. So she started thinking that maybe her place was in Yasumizu after all. So she came back for vacation. And then 2 days later, the mist came, and there was a feast, and she was hung on the first day.
Right, and in her loops, I think she said for the first 57 loops, it was her and Tai who were the wolves every time, and they never got it any further than the fourth day.
Yeah, she only tells us that she was actually the wolf a little bit into it. At first, says that she was the outsider, so they decided to hang her on the first day. And then the second time, she thought she was just waking up from a nightmare, but it happened again. And yeah, and she was the wolf at that time, she and Tai. But she and Tai were probably like the worst choices for wolves, because she was an outsider and Tai was an old woman that didn't really know how to handle things.
That hated the outsiders, yeah.
So she tried all sorts of things, but she never could make it past like 4 days.
What absolute hell.
Yeah.
I like that, though.
That she's in hell?
No, not that. It's just the idea of until the loop starts changing, you're just stuck in a dead-end loop where you can't win no matter what you do.
Yeah, and then her first change was when Mako came in, and her loop started 1 day later, suddenly. Instead of waking up 2 days before the mist, he started waking up 1 day before the mist, and Mako came into town from Saranaga. And that changed the roles.
This brings up a lot of, like, questions for me, I guess, of, like, how a time loop can become malleable, and doesn't exactly make sense to me, and I'm just sort of, okay, I'm playing along for the fun of it.
Well, it's magic that has, like, put this place into the dream realm, so we're kind of deep in the magic part of it at this point.
I mean, it makes sense. A wizard did it, and
yeah,
there are very few ways to do time travel and stuff like this, and it makes complete sense. So I get it.
Well, no, wait, don't we learn something though as to why roles would change up that doesn't just have to do with exactly that?
Yeah,
like a way that it could have potentially happened.
Yes. Have you, Slowbeef, have you heard of, what did he call it?
The Ghost Leg Lottery.
Ghost Leg Lotteries? Whoa, can I play a Ghost Leg Lottery and win money?
Let's finish up what Chiami tells us before we get to that, before Haruaki takes
Sorry,
time.
Professor, jeez, okay.
I don't know, seems kind of rigged.
I'm sorry, I get too excited about Ghost Leg Lotteries.
Slow your roll there, Slowbeef, jeez.
Jeez, all right.
Watch us do a Ghost Leg Lottery live.
Sorry, Dad, what happens next?
So Mako appears, and then the roles change, and they become basically what our first loop was, because basically the same people. So Yasunaga and Tai were the wolves. Tai remained the wolf, but Yasunaga became one too. And he's much better than Chiami was, so he can actually win the game. But Chiami still can't make it out, so the wolves sometimes win this time around, but she just doesn't survive. She does say that at one point, in one of her loops, Kaori poisoned the food and the wolves died, and she made it through. But then she tried to leave Yasumizu, and her bus got engulfed in the mist and crashed or something. And she looked again.
This is really romantic if you think about it. Can you imagine like you're kind of like flirting with somebody and you're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Carrie poisoned all of us too in an alternate timeline? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those like, wow, you know.
I have something in common with this person.
The serial murderer attacked both of us.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We both died the same. Wow. That's really something.
Yeah. I don't understand how Haruaki thinks that he couldn't end up with Chiami after all of this, because how the fuck else, like, how could you live otherwise? Like, how could you be the only person that knew that all this happened? Like, you would have to be around the only other person that knew all of this happened.
I know. Well, can you imagine this is like How I Met Your Mother, and then there was some other person, they're like, Dad, you didn't marry, like, the girl who was time traveling with you and you killed people with?
Oh my god.
Like, what are you, an idiot?
Well, then I met this middle manager for a Kohl's, and she was just so charming.
You'll get it when you loop through 20 years of your life.
You get bored of people, okay? Jeez. Anyway, sorry.
And then after many more loops with Mako, the loop started starting one day later than that, and Haruaki showed up on that day, and then things really started to change for Chiami.
And he continues to talk to her. So since she remembers everything, he asks her to like explain different stuff that she did on different routes. And it basically like confirms that she like killed herself on that route because she like she couldn't bear it. But he specifically says, how did you survive at night while the wolves were out? And she says that she just sat there with her gun at the top of the stairs and shot any dogs that came up the stairs at her.
Blasting away.
Yeah, which again, why did they not hear that? Why did they not hear Chiami just like killing several dogs?
Who didn't hear the rest of the village?
The rest of the wolves, because you know they suddenly come upon Chiami and they've been out, you know, as the wolves figuring out what they're going to do, and then they head over there and they come upon her. Like they didn't hear her shooting all the rest of the time. I feel like they would have. I feel like they would have heard Chiami blasting these dogs on their way to go find her. Maybe they did, but why does it matter? Or she looped anyway, and she says that she can take care of the dogs that are coming up. But if she does that, then eventually the werewolf comes and she can't kill him, like the big one that we saw on our very first first loop. What else?
So this was also the first time that I realized that the dogs that were killing people were actually like just dogs. And I said when they said it was dogs before, I assumed it was like, okay, they're like the, you know, spirit animals of the mountain or something like that.
Evil dogs.
Yeah, monsters, right? Something.
Another mystery that she solves for us is we ask her about when the old man and Mochi both died because they had their stomachs split open, like when Mochi went out there with the old man and on the first route, and he says that and he asks Chiami about it, and she says the old man did kill Mochi, and then Chiami killed him, and that's what had happened that first time. And the reason that Rikako was corrupted is because Chiami got corruption from doing that, and Rikako took in Chiami's corruption.
Basically took the punishment for her.
Sexually.
Yeah, it appears that Rikako is the only person Chiami really respects in the village because she kept helping her in all sorts of ways.
Sexually. Right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I refuse to comment on this until you read the next part of this game. I
read this part like over 2 weeks ago because I read it early because of vacation. So I'm kind of forgetting some of this.
Then in the next reading, your questions may be answered in episode 11.
Nice. All right.
That's the lesbian episode.
Finally.
And the last piece of information we get in this info dump is that Haruaki asks her why she's even in Yasumizu and what's the deal with God and everything. So she tells him her origin story.
What's the deal? No.
I was thinking that too, yeah.
She was born Chiami Migaruba. She's from the Migarubas. Oh my god.
Yeah, she was a Miguruma. And apparently the Migurumas don't actually tell anyone that they had a baby for like 10 years. They keep them hidden.
Or if anyone dies, they don't tell anybody for 10 years. What the fuck?
Yeah, but she was the only daughter of the Miguruma family. She was supposed to grow up and then marry whoever they bring in to be the next head of the family. But instead, when she was 5 years old, she opened the forbidden door in the mansion.
You know.
Yeah.
In like a tower. They talk about like a tower. So this is like a Fata Morgana mansion that has towers.
And there are dogs inside and they attack her. And she gets bitten. And that apparently makes her corrupted. So they send her to Yasumizu.
And she has... This is when we talk about the necklace, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
They changed her family last name to one of the branch family's last name, so no one knows she's a Miguruma, and they give her the necklace, which they say will keep the corruption in. And she was 5 years old, so that's really like stuck in her head. So she can't allow herself to take the necklace.
Yeah, so the Migurumas are a little... There are actually a couple of things in this specific reading where I'm just like, really? You were able to just keep a secret and keep going with this entire plan for 10 years or more and not have anything just randomly fuck up?
Yeah, and she's also traumatized for life because she's basically a 5-year-old who got sent away into a remote village. And
Haruaki asks why was she kept a secret? And the answer was just because they believe that there's power in secrets.
Sure.
And like reflecting over all this after we've read what we've read, in terms of like how things happen in the village and how the this is really 999 stuff that I was kind of worried about actually happens. But it's not entirely that. So I'm not entirely mad about it. But for that, like, and then the way that she talks about it, it was very much like to keep the idea that this was real and this was real magic and the Miguruma have an entrance to Yomi and all this stuff. The way she described it, I didn't think of it as a mansion as much as I thought about it as like a castle, like a compound type of thing. But I guess that would be like a Japanese style mansion. But like the idea of a tower in a house was like a lot. Full of dogs. A tower full of dogs.
Dog tower.
Dog tower.
Not just dogs, but dogs in the forbidden room.
This is actually the sequel to Hustle Cat, if you think about it. They took the franchise in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right?
Hustle Dog.
Yeah.
No, but Werewolf. Boom.
Yeah.
Raging Loop.
Their wolf.
Raging Loop. Raging Loop : a sequel to Hustle Cat.
So another thing that people have told Chiami her whole life was like that anybody who takes in Yomi's corruption because she got bit by the dogs will eventually go mad and die. And so like there's like this idea that like she was eventually supposed to die anyway, or like supposed to go insane anyway.
Right. And then she grows up and she has all these problems with like being delinquent and acting out and beating people up.
Oh, and then Haruaki's like, but like you went to college. So when you went to college, didn't you like try to look up a scientific explanation for everything that you've experienced? And she says, yes, I did. And I think on paper, I think they even talk about like on paper, probably like she got tested for rabies. She says she got tested for rabies. Like she was so like, but it doesn't like the emotional impact is still there. So it doesn't matter whether she believes that those were like some kind of special dogs or not. It's like, it's too ingrained into her from the trauma she experienced.
Right. I mean, you're 5 and you get attacked by dogs. That's scary enough. But then you've got your parents telling you, okay, you got bitten by the special evil dog. So now you're evil too. You have to wear this necklace. And also you're going to go insane and die. So
the evil dogs that we have in a portal to hell in the basement.
Yeah, just around.
The special door we've told you not to open, and you opened it.
Right. But we had very good reason to tell you not to open it, to be honest.
You opened our special dog torture chamber where we torture dogs just specifically to maintain this very elaborate premise. That's the least believable part of all of this, is that you could like maintain a long-term dog torturing facility.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the Megarumas have like a lot of plans that they just expect to completely go right. Yeah, everyone keeps this kid a secret for 10 years. No one says anything. How?
They got high hopes.
There's probably a lot of drama behind the scenes. I mean, TBH.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So now Haruaki thinks he has an ally and they can try new stuff together. And he wants to try to control the feast. But Chiami is more into trying to escape. So he says, okay, I'm going to let her take the lead for now. And they spend like 50 loops or so trying to escape in various ways. Like trying to fix his bike before the entire thing starts and running away and trying all sorts of... I don't even remember, but...
There were a couple times where like they just got numb to it and Jeremy's like, oh, I'm evaporating now again. Let's
right.
reboot.
It's like they frame it like it's a montage, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm crumbling again. See you next time.
So yeah, they got tired of that fruitless path. After a while.
And now Haruaki figures out about the ghost leg lottery. So go ahead, Slowbiff.
Oh, can we talk about that now?
Haruaki, much like me several episodes ago, is wondering if the werewolf game is deterministic on some different factor. And he decides to compare it to a ghost leg lottery, which I'm sure Slowbeef is so eager to talk about.
Not really. What do you call it? No, all right. This part's silly, in my opinion, because the problem is, and they textually like figure out that it has to like the roles are apportioned by where you're staying, you know, on the first night, and he figures out the combination behind it is a ghost leg lottery. Here's my issue. A ghost leg lottery, for those of you listening at home and are like, Slowbeef, what's a ghost leg lottery?
If you're not Japanese.
It's a thing that's... But if you're Western and you don't know immediately, what's the name for it again? The Japanese name?
Something with Kuji in the end.
Yeah, that. So...
It's the Mega Man X boss.
You've probably seen it. It's like Bow Spider, or it's the Phantasy Star 2 Online bomb defusing minigame. Lots of video games use it. It is basically like a series of vertical lines with randomly distributed horizontal lines between them. The idea is you follow one line down, and if you hit a vertical line between them, you cross over to the column that it connects to, and you keep going down. And the idea is you'll land on a specific column. The idea is if you have, let's say, like, two sets of things, like in this case, like 4 people and 4 roles, hypothetically, the top of the column is the people, the bottom is the role, and you do that following it down to like actually land where you need to go. If you imagine Bow Spider from Mega Man X, who's the first Sigma stage boss, where he's got like 4 pillars and these things come around and he crosses and tries to hit you that way, it is exactly like that. Dvac, what was it? Mario Party, right? There's a Mario.
There's a Mario Party mini game where like there's a treasure box and somebody gets to pick the top what pipe it goes in, and then it goes legs down, and the 4 players are on the bottom.
It's one of the worst mini games in Mario Party, and that's saying something.
Known game of skill, Mario Party.
What I didn't realize before this game is that Gothic Lottery is a 1-to-1 distribution. I didn't realize that that's what's happening, but it is mathematically.
Yes. I should say for n possible mutations, you get n out of 10. All right, anyway, before we get there, this is my biggest problem with Raging Loop, right? It's a visual novel. You know what's the easiest way to explain ghost leg lotteries? A picture? You know. But this is kind of like, you can see where they run into localization issues, and they couldn't, I guess, modify like the original game script enough to add a picture, you know? So... to a Japanese audience, like Ghost Leg Lottery, got it, you know? But to like the West, it's like... It would
been nice to have a picture, I feel like, just to illustrate, like, here's a line from this to... I think they didn't want to figure out the Ghost Leg Lottery. They didn't want to figure out what it would have to look like.
I don't know. The way if you know Japanese game creators, they probably do have the exact actual ghost lottery that determines this entire thing in their files.
So the weird thing about this is the ghost leg lottery bit is like almost completely pointless, except to where the only fact that we really needed to establish with this entire thing was that it is deterministic what roles you can get from this.
Well, Haruaki takes this to Mochi because Mochi is a genius. And he asks Mochi to come up with the actual ghost leg lottery that could come up with these results that he knows happen. And he does this because he wants to be able to manipulate the role assignment exactly to what he needs. So, and he gets this. He gets this ghost lottery, and now he basically can, if he puts people in different locations, he knows exactly what the results will be.
Right.
But he never actually gets to do this because of Chiami.
But here's my problem with that too. The hardest part, I think, about this thing is figuring out in the first place that it's a ghost leg lottery, right? That's the work.
Also, this to me was very disappointing because it really shows that the Miguruma are lazy asses. Like, really? Like, you just been using the same ghost leg lottery for like 100 years or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like, give me a break. Oh my god. Couldn't even buy like a D12 or something like over the past 50 years.
But like, or use a computer or like anything. But like,
or draw out of a hat.
But why do you need Mochi? Like, you really can't then be like, oh, all right, I've got the whole system here, but what would I need to add to do it? Like, come on, you figured out the hard part. Like, what is know?
I think it was just to include him.
I think part of it was like he was wondering, like, is it possible to game a ghost leg lottery? Because for some reason he didn't realize that it wasn't truly random.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was my reading of it.
Didn't he also come to the conclusion that it's not entirely fixed either? Like, he can manipulate the residences, but aren't there some loops where there's still an element of randomness to it?
No, the randomness comes in when you add in more elements to the lottery. But even then, it's not completely random. It just
no. What I'm saying is that he manipulated the residences, and I remember there's line being that I had a good chance of it being this role. Like, it wasn't a set thing. Am I reading it wrong?
So there's a weird thing of that certain roles get picked like first. Like, he was saying that the Nosato was almost always human because it like started at the top of the mountain or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on the leg distribution part of it, like, you know, if it's the patterns there, then the roles are going to be apportioned the same way pretty much every time, you know?
Yeah, and if you add more people on the right side of the lottery system and you start on the left, then the people who are on the very far left of that are chosen first are much less likely to actually get changed if you add more roles to the entire diagram.
Right.
That's the thing.
Basically, it's a long and confusing way of explaining that Haruaki can manipulate the roles now.
Yeah, it goes into way long to just be like, this is deterministic.
The other thing is, too, I don't think a ghost leg lottery really, really, really works for what they want per se. I mean, it does in the sense that it assigns multiple things, quote unquote, randomly, but I think it's got some issues to it. But the whole point of it is that it is a human beings who are doing this, like role apportioning, right? That's like really the ultimate kind of thing. Like, it shows that, like, wait a second, this isn't just, or at least, like, it's not like just God's will being a jerk. It's like, wait, there's something to this. There's some kind of pattern here. Something's happening.
Yeah, a person had to have done this. Yeah.
Right.
But then Chiami snaps.
Yeah, what Haruaki wants to do now is just start experimenting, and his two ideas are either try to see how long they can go without any mothers, probably by like getting the role of the what was it? Who's the protecting one? Was it the spider?
Spider.
Yeah,
spider.
Probably by getting the role of the spider and then just protecting whoever the wolves are going to kill every night. And his other idea is to just get it over as quickly as possible with no one, like just by killing the wolves immediately through vote.
Yeah.
Like not in any illegal means, corrupting means. But Chiami really doesn't want to do that. Chiami is insane by now. So her idea of a good time is just killing Haruaki in various ways.
And he's very patient. He takes it. She kills him 63 times before he's like, okay, I'm starting to get annoyed.
This is a little too much.
And he gets a bulletproof vest from the convenience store so that when she shoots him, it doesn't immediately kill him. And then he gets the gun and shoots her back one time.
He goes, "Are you satisfied now?"
I like the line where, like, he says he got the bulletproof vest, and there's like a little surprise in there that the convenience store even had a bulletproof.
I am wondering if this is just a throwaway joke or if the convenience store is going to be plot relevant. Because it seems like he could just find whatever he wants at that store. Like, anything he needs, he just finds it.
I want to say it's both.
Well, we know it's a dream.
So there's one line I noticed the first time I played this. At the beginning of this Chiami thing. And Chiami, when she started telling her story about how she came to Yasumizu back on vacation, she said that Yasumizu was really boring and there are no convenience stores around.
Oh.
I mean, we are in a dream, and, you know, the sheep has said that he's been trying to help and influence the dream as well, so, you know.
I know, I already know, and I don't like it.
Is the convenience store clerk the third god, is what I'm getting at.
The convenience store clerk's the sheep.
Read to find out.
I mean, I don't know that for sure,
Oh,
I'm just
no.
guessing, but it seems really obvious to me now that we've, like, said all that.
That probably
Watch
is
Dark
it.
instead of playing Raging. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so, like,
Some of these things may be true in a way.
I don't know. Maybe it's not that. I don't know. So,
It's
like,
not exactly that.
I don't, you know, well, whatever. I mean, we could, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, what was it? Oh,
So the thing that Chiami says that really fucking got me with this is, like, so she's kills him 63 times, and he kills her back once, and, like, actually fights back. And when the next time he returns, she's unarmed, and she basically says, like, I realize that I love you, and I love you, like, so, she loves him, like, so desperately and so completely, and she's like, but to you, like, your goal is to, like, solve the loop, and I'm just a side character. and his position is basically, like, if he agrees to, like, fall in love with her before they've escaped, then they may no longer want to escape, like, or she would lose her motivation to escape. And then they would, again, be very fucked.
This entire conversation is very fucked.
Yeah,
the entire
is
dialogue
wild.
is like...
Something interesting that happens is that she calls him out for always saying "eto" before he lies. And,
I love that.
And then she
Yeah.
flashes back to when he first introduces himself, and he did that before he introduced himself, implying that his name is not actually Haruaki Fusaishi. He is someone else.
But can I say, too, the game, I will say I really like how they did that, where they start off with two other lies that he tells, like, when he gets caught, like, mentioning doing something before, he goes, oh, I must have remembered that differently. And then the third one is, my name's Haruaki Fusaishi. Yeah, it was really well done.
Huh, I did not even pick up on that.
They specifically showed that line where it says, Eto, my name is Haruaki Fusaishi, and I'm a college student.
Oh no, I do remember that.
He's not what he says he is.
By the way, the fun thing about this is that if you replay the game, he does this a lot of times, this Eto thing. And many of those lines are things that the reader knows are lies, so you can definitely figure this out. But then there are also a lot of lines where the reader doesn't know he's lying, and if you know that that's his, like, tell, then you get some really nice things if you just reread the game afterwards.
Oh, that's fun.
That is fun.
Actually, I am starting to like Raging Loop a little more.
I like that reveal.
So she's freaking out at him, and he responds by pushing her into the river and then kissing her, which would be, like, sort of playful and romantic in literally any other context, but this one, still pretty psychopathic.
He has all of his bones broken, and she has a bullet wound.
And they decide to jump off the cliff by the hanging pine together, like a couple suicide, because they love each other. But Haruaki won't admit it until they're out of the loop, basically.
He also says at one point that that she's also in love with Rikako and maybe Haru, and it's not fair to them.
Yeah, he still wants them to have a happy ending. Yeah.
I mean, to be totally fair, it's not like he like kind of says it funny, but I kind of took it more to mean like I just feel bad with like he not pities them, but he feels bad about the way like things ended for them. Not like that I love all three of you, I can't decide kind of shit, you know. That's how I took it anyway.
But then as they're going to like commit suicide together, he has a realization. And that's that something is weird here, because he assumed that the loop restarts whenever he dies. But Chiemi assumes that the loop starts whenever she dies. And sometimes they don't die together. Sometimes one of them survives for like days after the other one. So when does the loop actually restart? And they notice that sometimes they don't even know how they died. The mist appears out of somewhere. And they don't actually remember dying, but the loop starts. So he tries to question when the loop actually does restart. And they even think about maybe it doesn't. I mean, maybe it restarts on the end of the universe or something.
Well, they say, like, he even says, like, the loop, it must happen when the mastermind, the dream wielder or whatever, fails to summon the monster.
I should, by the way, one quick, like, thing that we didn't close the loop on is Chiami does actually... all right. One thing we didn't mention is that Chiami does actually explicitly ask Haruaki what his name is after that reveal, and he doesn't say, and he kind of changes the subject just in case you don't think she followed up on it or something. It's like, I noticed it's not your real name anyway. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in.
Mm-hmm. And right before they jump, he does finally admit that before they jump off the cliff, he says that he loves her. Because he's like, well, we're going to land on our heads, so hopefully she doesn't remember this part. And he says that he loves her, and then they jump off the cliff and die.
And that's our first key.
Yeah. And now the hint sheep is just going to keep telling us the next keys to go to.
You don't have to do them in that order if you want to actually go through the chart and look for the choices yourself.
Yeah. So the next one
like
that the
this,
sheep tells us, this is fun. I feel like me and the sheep are working together.
Yeah, it's like, I like the hint sheep here because it's like, I don't have to waste time, searching for the right place to go. I can just go where the sheep tells me to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I do like the order of the reveals in this too.
So the next one is with Kanzo, where you break when Haruaki has fallen and hurt himself, he like twists his ankle or whatever, and Kanzo comes to talk to him on the wolf route.
Right. In the original route, we kind of talked about Haru, and this led into our little scheme to win the game. And then here we have the choice of talking about Haru and somebody else. I forget who.
Well, yes, Kanzo about Haru, and
Haruaki's strategy is that he just tells Kanzo that he's a wolf.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, screw it, I'm a wolf.
And he's like, you've probably figured out that Haru is also a wolf. Are you like? And he's like, are you willing to kill your granddaughter? And he basically is like. He basically sits down with Kanzo and asks him a bunch of questions because Kanzo is willing to talk to him now because of this. And
right, he's willing to talk to him because at first he doesn't really believe that Haruaki's a wolf, but then Haruaki's like, look, I'm an outsider. I'm not so much a part of this. I have different beliefs than you guys. So yeah, I am totally okay with just telling you that I'm a wolf.
Fuck your rules.
Isn't this also a kind of a loop scenario where he has to tell him things that he shouldn't know, or is that different? Oh, that's different. Never mind.
That's a different person.
This is more. He's just open with him and is basically it's lining up for Kanzo to kill him, but he's like, let me ask you these questions, and Kanzo talks about previous feasts so Kanzo has participated in 2 previous feasts. This is his 3rd. He was a human both times. But
he was alive for 3 of them. Because there was a feast apparently right after he was born, when he was a baby.
Yeah.
And he was a wolf.
That was during World War II.
Yeah. And then after that one, the next one was not till 40 years later. Anyway, how much do we want to talk about this? He talks about the triangle cloth.
I'm fine with just glossing over it.
Yeah. The main thing is that he talks a lot more about his son and daughter-in-law, that Haru's parents, and his son was Toru and his daughter-in-law was Tomiko, and they participated in that feast. And Haru's mom, Tomiko, was from somewhere else. She was also an outsider. And the first feast that he participated in, his son and his son's wife were out of town visiting the parents out of town. And the first feast, everybody lied. And the first feast he was in was when the Higuchi heir, Kaori's husband, was killed.
And he was a human back then, and the human won the feast.
Yeah.
And not much other than that. The second feast he was in, he was also a human. He was the crow, actually. So he was never a wolf, like we suspected.
Right.
But it ended weird. The second one ended weird.
Yeah, it ended weirdly. So he was the crow, and he knew his son was a wolf because his son also claimed crow. And
that's right.
They had a huge fight over that, and his son's wife. Yeah, it made his son's wife crazy because they had to hang one of them. So they ended up hanging his son, who claimed to the very end that he was the real crow. And Kanzo was lying. And that made his wife crazy. So his wife tried to kill Kanzo at night, so she got a corruption, and that's how she died. And then the next day, the mist just cleared, even though they didn't kill all the wolves. And Kanzo knew that they didn't kill all the wolves because it was the crow. He knew exactly who they killed. So there were 2 wolves left. But the mist cleared and everything returned to normal.
I have a theory on this, but I'll wait till the end.
Yeah, which it backs up this idea that Gen, the guy who died, was a wolf during that time, and that's why he knew about the badger. So Kanzo survived, but he wasn't a wolf, and Gen was a wolf and survived.
Yep, and that's the important thing we got out of this thing.
And then Kanzo shoots us.
Yeah. Oh, and there's I don't know if they say this or if I just wrote this in my notes, but like that maybe the mist cleared because of Haru, because Haru that would have been like also the night that Haru like tried to run into the village as a child to like see her parents, and then ended up getting possessed or whatever, and maybe that something about that like made the Miguruma like call it off or something.
I don't recall them saying that.
There's some family drama here when Haruaki makes Kanzo realize that the reason he's estranged from his granddaughter is because of his own like actions, and he's been keeping her away, and she's really a good kid and stuff like that.
Yeah, he like gives him advice. Yeah, gives him advice. And Kanzo's like, well, maybe we can figure something out. And Haruki's like, no, you just got to shoot me and move on, dude. Because he's got to get out of this loop. I got the information I wanted. I'm out. Shoot me. And so Kanzo shoots him.
It's like he kind of just wants it to end, but he also wants it to be like a little dramatic scene where it's like, you got to shoot me, Kanzo. You know what you got to do. And then internally, he's just like, come on, dude.
And it's like he knows at this point, at least in the order that we read it, that it won't actually restart the loop. Just that he doesn't have to pay attention anymore.
Right. He just wants to, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he wants to use his information. I just took it as like he's just like, I'm bored now.
He wants to save scum.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I'm not even kidding about that. Like, I think he's just like, yeah, all right, anyway, next. Like, he doesn't really give a shit.
Oh, no, that's absolutely it.
So that's the end of that route. We get another key. And the next location is How to Pass Time, which is when the route where we're the snake, where Haruaki's the snake, and Mamiya, the reporter, is explaining lore to us in the loop where she is a wolf.
And over here we get a long lore explanation that probably if you don't know something already about Japanese mythology, probably just goes over your head.
My eyes just crossed.
There are very long words in Japanese and long names that you really can't keep track if you don't like see the kanji along with them or know something about them already.
Like, this felt like a really boring history lesson or something.
I mean, like, I've watched people stream Sekiro and stuff, but like, this is over my head.
I thought it was interesting, but it definitely requires some kind of like previous knowledge to enjoy this.
Well, I mean, if you played Neo, then you get to at least see one of the bosses mentioned again. Like Doraguma, the spider lady. What's up?
Yeah, the important thing to get out of this is that what Haruaki really wants to know is that about spiders, because there are no real spider gods in Japanese mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And she confirms that. She says that there are some spider yokai, and they're like spiders in Buddhism, but there are no gods. And she goes into the entire thing also about spiders in world mythology. And then she goes into Jung and the archetype theory and what spiders represent in the human mind.
And Yasunaga's like, wow, this is really interesting. And she like gives him her card and he's like, I want to study this when I go to college. And it's like very like, and Haruka's like, wow, what a nice young man that Yasunaga is.
Maybe I'll have to set this up in an actual successful loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, now let me though summarize to you the actually important part that you have to take out of this, that you probably didn't, because you didn't actually see the kanji, and it's really hard to keep track of the long names if you don't.
Yes.
And that there are two types of gods in Japanese mythology, the Amatsukami, who are the heavenly gods, and Ama is the kanji for sky, so that's how you know that they're from heaven. And the Kunitsukami, who are the earthly gods, and Kuni is the kanji for earth. And the heavenly gods are the ones, the famous ones, Izanagi, Izanami, Amaterasu, the ones you probably heard about. And that's also where the Japanese emperor line come from. So the first Japanese emperor, the legend is that he's a direct descendant of Amaterasu. And up to these days, the current emperor is like in the line that's descended from those gods.
Checks out.
But they originally ruled the heavens, and the Kunitsukami, who are lesser gods, ruled the earth. But then the heavenly gods wanted to also take hold of the earth. So they had some like god war and won eventually. And she talks about how this is all actually all about politics, like real politics. So in the real world, the emperors took over and like won over some like local tribes and conquered them. And those were known as the Tsuchigumo, which is the name of a yokai, of a spider yokai, but is also a nickname for those tribes that were conquered back then. And that's what you have to know.
Oh my god. Wait a minute. You can pet the god in Raging Loop. Anyway, sorry. I bet it's gonna happen. Anyway, so
did any of you get this out of what Mamiya says?
I did. I got it, but I didn't understand how it applied to the story that we were in.
Yeah, that's really interesting, but I don't know what that has to do with any of this.
What was that weird cloud thing with the faces, though?
Yeah. All I got was spiders are not in the normal mythology as good things.
I got Juragumo. I know that from Neo. Anyway, it's okay.
She talks about a lot of things. A lot of these are red herrings, but these are the important stuff for later.
Got it.
There are no spiders in Japan.
So she doesn't even kill him. He just walks into the river.
Yeah.
He tries to, like, bait her. And she's like, because he says like, oh, maybe you should tell this to Chiami and Mochi too, who are the other wolves on this route. And and she like doesn't take the bait, and he's like, aw, I thought you would kill me, but you won't. So I'm just gonna walk into the river.
I like to imagine the timeline where like he's gone, but the rest of the game still happens, and they're talking, about him just walking off, committing suicide, and they're like, well, who did he talk to last? What did he talk to you about? Well, I just told him this story about spiders, and I don't know.
I don't believe you. Yeah.
He tells Chiami and Mochi, like he knew all of us, and then he just walked off and died.
And then Chiami's just like, fuck it, shoot all of them.
Was my story that bad? Jesus.
Or Chiami's like, oh, I got it. He's just bored. Never mind him.
Yeah.
All right, listen. We have the next one, right? The next loop.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
And this is awful.
Oh, this is
and let's just try
terrible.
to get through it as fast as possible.
All right, the Nosato timeline here. Time for some otaku to otaku communication.
Yeah, the very beginning of this is the best. So.
Yeah, the beginning of it, because it's like we learn a little bit about Nosato. He's not just like some jerk
like
ass.
him.
He actually gets a little bit of development where he's like, he's kind of practical. He'll believe things if you can explain them properly.
Haruaki first figures out that he's an otaku. Yeah, he's a nerd.
Yeah.
That's not hard to figure out.
They're talking about a time loop movie here, and they're not talking about Groundhog Day. Does anyone know about the movie they're talking about?
I didn't. I thought it was Groundhog Day, but...
They mentioned a movie where there's a time loop before a school festival, and it's an Urusei Yatsura movie. Do you know what Urusei Yatsura is? It's a famous anime series and series of movies, and one of the movies is about a time loop. So they're the nerds, the otakus. Both of them, by the way, because Haruaki is also really into it.
Yeah, it's adorable. I like this. It's a human connection. I like Kiyonosuke.
And this is outside of the mansion where they have a nice little fun talk. And then they go inside the mansion where everything gets boring.
Yeah, basically Haruaki asks about the uncle, grandfather that he mentioned before.
The ancestor.
It starts okay, and basically Haruaki convinces Nosato, like, look, I'm looping, I'm from the... I know everything. And he tells him things he shouldn't know about his family, about what he knows about all this. And he's like, I'm not convinced, but I'm interested. Let's talk. So he talks about his grandfather. Long story short, they want to find some secret documents his grandfather had for research, and they find it after looking not in the mansion, but in, like, they look around with blueprints. They find a place in the basement.
Secret passage. You gotta remember the crow thing and press the buttons in the right order, which I felt was a deep cut.
No, you don't. You just have to go through the choices until you get the right one. That's what I did.
Yeah, this is the one actual real puzzle in the entire game, and it's a very bad one.
Yeah, so they go to like a shed outside, and in the basement of the shed you find the Nosato like family crests, and they're like, oh, these are buttons. What's the correct order?
Yeah, and you don't even get hint sheep if you get it wrong. You just fall into a pit of spikes. You don't even have time to scream. You probably do it. You probably get it wrong more than once because it's the bottom choice, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I did the first one. I died, and then I chose the last one the second time, which is the right one.
I remembered it.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we just cheated. We coasted by on our laurels.
I was proud of myself. I was like, I'm going to really try, and I was right. And so, Devious Vacuum, good at video games.
you know, great, but your reward, unfortunately, is you get basically like wikipedia.org/wiki/Nosato family.
Yeah, now I thought a lot of this was interesting. It was just told in the worst possible way.
And we're not going to talk about it in detail, folks.
It was also the kind of thing where to get the most out of it, you have to have like background knowledge about Japanese history and stuff like that. It's interesting even without it, but like some of it was neat. And also there's like an entire thing here about kanji puzzles, which is not translated at all.
No, it's not. Like they'll show you the kanji. I mean, I know what a radical is, and I'm kind of all right. I'm kind of used to it from looking up things in a kanji dictionary, and I know like 1,000 about. So I got it. I don't know. Is this like? It's like basically if you take different little patterns in the kanjis and like move them over to different characters to make other kanjis, it's kind of like something like an anagram, I guess. I couldn't really think of a good analog for this, you know?
Yeah, and there's wordplay where like the kanji that are actually used in the name of Yasumizu and Fujiyoshi are not the ones that you thought they were, but they were other ones that just sound the same way. There's a lot going on. It's really neat if you actually understand it. But if you don't, it just, you see some characters and you don't really understand what they're saying, so...
I kind of thought of it as like the thing where you have like matchsticks arranged to make a number, and then you can move them around to make another number or something like that.
It's, I guess. I like what Oren Ronan, like what Oren, I talked to you about this on Discord briefly, and you had a good analogy, I thought, which is like when you're like a little bit older and you finally realize what Alucard is.
Yeah, that's what this is like for Japanese people, this entire thing. Because it's neat. If you understand what's going on, it's really neat. I mean, it's cool to see those, like, the words, like, slide around and become different words. I enjoyed it. I honestly enjoyed it. But if you don't know anything about kanji, it's just a big mess to read through.
Also, but Alucard isn't cool, so I don't think there's a way that you could do this in English, because the way that we do wordplay in English is just sort of universally lame and like not funny and not clever.
I did like the Olean Hospital analogy.
I said that, yeah, and Snatcher, because they actually remove parts of the letters to make a different, you know what I mean? Like, basically, it's Queen, but like the crossbar in the Q and part of the U is missing, so it looks like Olean. So it's like that, kind of, sort of, because you're moving around the shape.
That's not cool. Is the problem.
I think it's cool.
We weren't going for cool, we're going for analogs. So keep up. So like, what do you call it? What were we doing though? We're all right. Look, let's get through this.
We're complaining about this chapter.
Yeah, let's just baseline the bare minimum plot points that we need to get through this.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of important stuff in here, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why does the feast happen? Because there was a rebellion of Yasumizu against Kami Fujiyoshi a long time ago. Why was there a Yasumizu to begin with? Because there has to be some kind of like scapegoat type.
That's actually one thing that they done that Haruaki doesn't figure out, why Yasumizu is even there. Because it just says that these people still lived there, even at the very beginning, even though there was really no reason to.
It wasn't always a place for the ostracized, right? It was like they talk about how Fujiyoshi like became like a settlement, and it was like a place for hunters to go, and then people lived there, and it was like a place known for its hospitality, and which kind of ties in with what Rikako had said in the other routes.
The first important thing we learn is that at the very beginning, when it was just a hunter settlement, they had a problem with wolves. And the way they solved it was by having a human sacrifice, which is something that they did in ancient Japan, just to appease the gods. So they had human sacrifice. And apparently the wolf problem stopped after that.
Well, good on them then.
Oh, and they burned the person. That's how they sacrificed them. And so, but I guess so there became two settlements, and like another thing was like, why was there a rebellion? And originally it comes down to the fact that Kami Fujiyoshi controlled the water supply flowing down to Yasumizu, and that basically that probably was related to the rebellion.
Yeah, and then Kami Fujiyoshi created the feast as kind of a means to weaken the other settlement, just to kind of get them fighting amongst each other and make it so that there would be no other rebellion.
Yeah, and it wasn't a supernatural feast at the beginning. They just
No, yeah, it was like a social thing.
Yeah, they told him the legends and made them superstitious, and then whenever there was mist, they just kill each other.
It's just on their own.
I also like that they kind of pointed out this kind of social thing where it's like, yeah, there was some superstition involved, but it was also kind of used as a way for people to air their grievances with each other.
Oh, yeah, so like the purge.
Of just like, yeah, basically a purge. Like, they're just getting rid of people that they have problems with, and under the guise of, the superstition.
Let's see. Then, 100 years later, Kami Fujiyoshi stabilized his settlement, and they start looking at reports from outsiders about how the religion. There's a gap period.
Yeah, there's a gap where nothing is recorded, and we don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably when the development of this new religion was done, and all the records were probably destroyed. And there's after a certain amount of time, visitors started being chased out of Kami Fujiyoshi instead of being welcomed. And so a little bit after that period where visitors started being chased out is when the Nosato can trace their lineage back. So the head families came out of that period of unrecorded stuff. So that's when they made up the religious framework that all of this is from. And since then, there are a ton of records, and we finally see the name Shinai mentioned for the first time. Shinai is referred to as the wolf-faced god. And then we get into the kanji. The kanji for Fujiyoshi can be rearranged to form werewolf.
And Yasumizu can be rearranged to form human sacrifice.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Are you surprised?
Probably much more cooler if I was more acquainted with the language.
Boy, if I was Japanese, that would be really neat.
Yeah, there's also like an entire system of like sub-region names that, like, if you rearrange them, turn into parts of the body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that doesn't amount to anything in the end, so...
But wait, Nilbog backwards. That's sort of what it feels like being not quite fully understanding the language at play here. Which is unfortunate because it sounds like really, really fun and creative on the writers.
Yeah.
The interesting historical part, also, that I think is interesting, is the tying into as time goes forward and Shinto becomes the official religion and Buddhist temples and customs were destroyed, and there's a lot of these, like the Uematsu in particular have a lot of Buddhist practices, and about how I just think that's a cool part of history in general. Yeah, because this is not the only place in the world that obviously this has ever happened, where the local beliefs had to be, they sort of warped them into the popular cultural religion of the area so that they wouldn't be persecuted.
But then the really important thing here is what happened just before World War II. They find actual mentions in national newspapers Kamifuji-yoshi, because there was a serial murder there, where in one night someone broke into 20 households and killed 17 people in 30 minutes.
Yep, kill percent, right?
And they eventually found the guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I was drunk."
I mean, they didn't find the guy. They didn't find the guy. He turned himself in.
Oh, right. He turned himself in. He was like, "Yeah, I was drunk. Sorry about that."
Kill people to save time, exactly. But
and what was his name?
Started with a T.
Kihei Tochitani.
Yep. And so, a month later, he turned up in Tokyo and turned himself in. But that made national news, and he had a trial for 2 years, and then they ended up killing him. But that's also when World War II started, so the news obviously turned towards the war instead of local business.
Yeah, people cared less about this.
But the first real feast, as they know it, happened about 2 years after the serial murders.
Yeah, Haruaki realized that the first real feast happened at World War II, and that's also the first feast when things started to turn supernatural. There were actual wolves around, and it wasn't just a social thing.
Oh, yeah. One other thing about the serial murder was that the families were a little weird about letting the police investigate, if I recall. They were helpful at first, but then turned them away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they tried to keep them away from Yasumizu specifically.
Yeah.
And so essentially this is sort of there's sort of in a way another rebellion or another social upset where a lot of people died. So maybe this is what inspired the ruling families to start this ritual again. We
also learn about a cholera outbreak in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
That Nosato himself had, and also I think Tai and
Kanzo.
And Kanzo. He said it gave him bad diarrhea.
Yeah, but some people died. And it was really bad. I mean, cholera is really bad. I don't know if you know much about cholera, but cholera is not a fun disease.
Yes, and the Nosato identified it and tried to treat it, but then the Miguruma were like, no, we want to do a ritual or whatever, and so there was this internal strife of the Nosato being like, no, this is a disease, we need to treat it, and the Miguruma continuing to be religious and a lot of the Uematsu died.
Nosato did not win that one.
Yeah, a lot of the Uematsu died as well while helping others, which probably sealed their fate of dying out. And then Haruaki says, was Rikako also infected? Because she must have been a girl at that time. And Kyo like has a really weird pause, and then he's like, well, she was too young to be around the others at the time. And I was like, oh shit, is this when he first fell in love with her? Does it go that far back? That's really creepy.
I think they say she was about like 10 years old at the time or something like that.
So I was like, Nosato, what are you doing?
How deep does this go?
My dude. How old were you?
Yeah, this the cholera was also apparently when the last of the other Uematsu died from the disease because they were treating people in Yasumizu. There were 2 other Uematsu women who died at the time, leaving Rikako alone.
Can't bang out the cholera, I'm sorry.
Well, they did, but then they had cholera. Like, they couldn't.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. No, you're right, it works, but, right.
Yeah.
See, it's like the ring.
So they reach the end of the diary. Oh, and then once they get to the end, like, they're like, this is like stuff that Kiyonosuke's father wrote, and like at the end he like went insane and drank poison, and like this has like a big effect on Nosato, like on Kiyonosuke himself, because this is his father and his grandfather who he had this impression of, and then it turns out like they were, they weren't really insane per se, but they were trying to like figure out everything that's been going on in order to stop it, and yeah.
Turns out they weren't black sheep. They were helpful people. Yeah.
So it recontextualizes all of that. And at the end, finally, he's like, okay, all this stuff has been going on, but how do you explain these paranormal events that go on during the feast? How do you explain, like, people falling asleep and having the words written on them and all that kind of stuff? I don't know exactly what he says, but he's like, what about the paranormal stuff? And Haruaki is like,
Haruaki says it's a magic trick. It's very easy to explain all of this.
Oh, here we go.
Calls it like the eyes of Megaruma or something like that.
So there's a nice translation mistake over here. The first one I found in the game, which it's just fun because the translator should have realized that they didn't get this line right. So Haruaki says that magic tricks work because a lot of them are either something really simple that you wouldn't expect. That's how the magician did it. Or the other way to do magic tricks is to have like really elaborate preparations that you really can't imagine the magician did. And that's true, actually. That's like a real thing. So
where everyone's in on it except you.
Just ask the master magician.
I saw like a televised magic trick a while ago where people chose 2 cards, and then they had a prediction on video with those 2 cards, and then the magician actually did like 3,000 takes with every possible 2-card permutation and had all of them, and said it took him like 24 hours to record all of this. And
that's actually a con too. It's like a raindrop thing where if you want to convince people, like, the con is like, you say like, I can win the NBA Final Four because it's all rigged and I know somebody, and you email like tons of people with all the permutations of how it wins, and then the people who like get the winning combination go, holy shit, how'd you do that? And then you're like, okay, if you want to bet with me, that kind of thing. I think it's called the raindrop scam. So
anyway, Haruaki gives us an example, a case where the entire audience are on the trick except for one person. So he says, and the thing is, the word for shield or someone who's on a trick is sakura, which is also how you say cherry blossoms. And the line got translated into, the trick when the audience turns into cherry blossoms?
Yes, that was confusing.
Right, and then like the second half of it's even like, and they're all in on it or something like that. So it's like,
I just assumed there was just a really popular David Blaine trick in Japan that was just like that.
Well, I mean, if they're in the audience, if the magician chose them, the magician planted them there. So
can you imagine you're at a magic show and then all of a sudden everyone else is a cherry blossom tree? That would be the best show ever. Like, wow.
Well, until the terror sets in and you think that you're next.
God, they were plants. That's a good pun.
But anyway, how does Haruaki explain all the supernatural stuff that happened?
It's fucking VLR, you guys. There's gas, there's electric locks.
Oh, but what if we accidentally do the dosage wrong and they die?
Well, they died by the corruption.
And there are cameras everywhere, so they know where everyone is at all times.
I thought that this was just like a shtick that he was giving Nosato to just like kind of close out the boring part with a little bit of humor.
No, I think he's going for like this ritual.
I think this is the actual con, or at least very close to it.
And then it's confirmed because they're hollering about it, and they're like, "Oh, they can probably hear us."
And they have rabid dogs that will attack people on sight to like wander around the place.
And are afraid of water.
They take the like the corrupted bodies back to the main village to like put them through a machine to get the weird effect.
Yeah, and then bring them back.
Well, they do near the end, after they've figured all this out. They say, well, if they're watching us, then they know that we've found all this out and figured it out, so now they're just going to kill us, and then they die.
And then they do kill them.
And that feels really bad for Nosato.
I like that Nosato says, like, at every point of this, like, this is, no one would do that. And Haruka says, yeah, that's why it works. Because you can't imagine that anyone would go to these lengths. Oh, and the electric clocks on the doors. The remote controlled electric clocks on the doors.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So my theory in Kanzo's game is they fucked up. They made him and the sun crows. And then they realized the mistake afterwards. So they're like, all right, game over. Screw it. Like, we have to stop early.
That's so sad. Oh my God. Wow. I love that explanation. That sucks so bad.
That was the one time they didn't do the ghost leg lottery.
Yeah, they're like, I told you, ghost leg lotteries work.
Oh my God.
The computer.
There's a guy at like the secret HQ saying, you know, we have to do the ghost leg lottery every time, guys.
You gotta unit test this stuff, man. Like, that's the whole point.
Why are you changing it? The ghost leg lottery works.
I think the unit testing was a callback from before we started recording, though, so I apologize to everyone. Damn it. Anyway, would have been good. Just laugh, I swear.
So they're gonna go unconscious from the gas, and Kiyonosuke gives Haruaki some aconite, and they both drink it so that they can't be interrogated later. And that's how we die in that route. So now we got all the information about like how the families operate in Kami Fujiyoshi and the sort of technical underpinning of like, why is there a feast? How does it work? What is its sort of larger political goal? Which is to stop rebellion, I guess. At this point, it's just seems like a lot, like overkill at this point.
And we found out all this cool information by having Haruaki read a book.
Yep.
For 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And Nosato's just making surprised faces in the background.
2 out of 10, bad chapter. I will say it gets a little bit of saving grace because after like a substantial info dump, Haruaki basically turns to the camera and says, okay, here's what we've learned. On to chapter 2.
But before we end the chapter, there's one last key we get, which is one of the best ones, I think.
One of the best ones, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this key is a reward for having to sit through the last one.
I do have to give Owen credit, though, because he did say that this was probably going to be a latent scenario, like very early on in this season. And he was right.
Yes, so now we want to check out the old man. And I forget exactly.
It's where we hide in the outhouse. It's that one.
Yeah, he is now confirmed my favorite character. I'm just going to spoil before we get there. But yeah. What did we do? I forgot that choice, actually.
Yeah, it's when Chiami tells us to hide in the outhouse.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah, so he suddenly remembers everything, and he makes Chiami remember everything too, because she also, her memories are kind of vague at sometimes. And
yeah, it's like he has to say something to snap her out of it or snap her back.
They introduce themselves. That's how they remember.
Chiami's like, okay, so what do you want to do now? And he says, I have to do this on my own. Just go do something. Go find a way to kill yourself.
And she says, oh, maybe I'll make a move on Yasunaga this route. And Haruaki acts like he's not mad, but he is mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes to find the old man. Time to find the old man. He's trailing him through the bushes and suddenly he loses him. And he's like, well, where could he have gone? It must have been like a hidden passage. And he looks around and he finds an underground waterway, which must be the irrigation tunnel that flows from up the mountain in Kami Fujiyoshi. He finds a hidden entrance to this tunnel, and it's large enough for a person to go through. And so he gets in and follows the tunnel upstream. There's water flowing underneath him when suddenly the water stops. And this is terrifying. I was like, ooh, when is he going to die? Like, he can't, but like, because there's no plot yet. But like, it was very scary.
Yeah, at this point, it is getting pretty late at night, too.
And he starts hearing the dogs coming from all around him, because that's apparently how they bring the dogs to the village, through this tunnel.
Yeah, tunnels full of dogs in a wet tunnel full of rabid dogs.
Oh, it's got that wet dog smell, too.
Man, if only Jim were here. But he's still reading part 4. No, I'm kidding. He couldn't be the last minute thing. But,
he got attacked by wet dogs.
Right.
Yeah. So then down in the tunnel he comes across the old man who cried wolf, and he's like, oh, this is the safest place you can be, and he's like, follow me, and he takes Haruaki down another tunnel, and this tunnel's not full of dogs, it's full of garbage, and they come into a garbage dump type room and sit there, and the old man rolls a stone over the entrance so the dogs can't get in, and now they just hang out.
I'm wondering how big that stone is, though.
What does he have to do to get the old man to like kind of drop the act? Because I like this part. He's just like, knock off the bullshit or something. No, he doesn't say that.
So at first the old man gives him like snacks, like modern snacks.
That's right.
That
yeah,
he doesn't know where he got them from, because there are none around here.
Well, it's a literal dump, so maybe people are just throwing their trash down there, and he's just eating the trash.
But it's like recent. Like it's something the village I think shouldn't have.
He's got Twinkies, yeah. Like he got it from the convenience store.
And like the expiration date's like within the last week, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's new, it's fresh. Like he just got it.
Yeah, and he also gave him sake to drink, alcohol to drink.
And
it's rotten,
and it tastes bad. Yeah, it's rotten.
And then Haruaki gets him to drop the act by saying, "You're the mass murderer from before the World War II, right?
The true mastermind," or something along those lines.
And this owns, because his art and his voice actor changes, so he turns from this really funny guy with like almost like silly eyes, and then he kind of like becomes this like gruff sort of like, yeah, right, you got me, you piece of shit. Like, you know.
It's kind of funny because he keeps the same pose, but his like entire face is drawn like he was like, I don't know, some like Yakuza person.
Yeah,
he's like kind of angry now. I think the art works here, honestly.
There ain't no Atlas, kid, never was.
I really like this a lot, truthfully.
Yeah.
Like
he becomes threatening, actually, in a way.
Yeah,
as threatening as like a 95-year-old guy can be.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. I just mean, he doesn't seem like threatening per se like that, but it's like he's scary almost in a way, you know? Mm-hmm. I like him. I'm just saying.
He's a murderer.
He's still my favorite character. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the serial killer. He was the the accomplice to Tochitani, which was set up. You know, it's like how could one person have killed this many people? He wasn't acting alone, and the old man who cried wolf helped him.
So Tochitani was someone from Kami Fujiyoshi who was exiled to Yasumizu, and that made him really bitter. And the old man was his only friend, and the old man basically like urged him to do this, like got him drunk, and
he's like, why don't you do something about it then?
And the old man wanted to like have the other guy, Tachikuni, kill everyone, and then he wanted to just rob the place and get rich out of it.
Yeah.
That was his goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think he's like kind of into it once it starts happening.
But yeah, he got kind of into it and wanted to see how far he could go.
Once, so what they did was they put mud all over themselves, because that buys into the superstition that Kami Fujiyoshi has. So once he saw the other guy kill all these people and the people give up no resistance, he decided, this looks fun. I'm going to kill some people myself. So he did.
That looks fun. I'd like to try that.
And then he became Mono Bear. Anyway, no.
But so why is he still alive? Well, it's because one of the things that he stole was a piece of paper with something important on it. And apparently, after that event, the Miguruma visited Yasumizu like many, many times, and under some other idea, like some other guys. But they were trying to find that paper. And what was that paper? It was a human trafficking contract.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they mentioned that like this isn't like a too big of a deal because the human trafficking just sort of happened back then, and like people, it was shitty, but it happened. But it was what they did with the humans that was really would be a nightmare.
Yeah, the problem was that they bought people, but the people are nowhere. I mean, no one knows what happened to them. I
Right.
mean, it would be okay if you bought people and then made them slaves or something, but the people just disappeared.
If you have shitty accounting about it, then you're a real monster.
So it's presumed that they were they figure out those people were sacrifices or something like that.
Or using experiments or whatever.
What I'm wondering, though, is if you're doing human trafficking, do you really need a contract for that? Is that something you'd write down?
I mean, ask Jeffrey Epstein.
Also, this is Japan. Everything is written down. Bureaucracy is like the most important thing here.
There's been a case where it's like, you said you were going to give me 40,000 yen, which was a lot of money back then. And they said, no, I didn't. So there has to be things now, because of that one time, like the one guy was a jerk about it, I guess. Any rate, the point is just that he's got blackmail on them. So they're like, all right, fine, we'll let you live. And he has like a deal with somebody who was in Tokyo where it's like, if I don't check in, that means something happened to me, so I want you to reveal this to the public. So
Yeah, and they're so afraid at like the tiny, tiny, minuscule chance that he's not lying, and also that his contact is still alive and would actually do this and is a real person who really exists, that they just let him.
to be fair, they do mention something too where it's like, well, the cost of doing it's not that high, meaning like it's not like he's exploiting them for like millions of dollars where they would check on that. It's just sort of like, just let me live. And they're like, all right. It's not a huge deal, I guess.
Right. It's kind of an interesting thing where he's in Yasumizu, where they have this murder festival, and they're not willing to cancel the murder festival because they need that, but they still want him alive. So I'm thinking they're giving him concessions, and they're giving him that food and a safe place to be, so he can be in Yasumizu and cause trouble and not reveal their secret, but they can still get their murder festival.
He mentioned something like if he tries to negotiate for anything more, he would almost certainly have been killed.
Oh. And you know what? No, wait. In the timeline without Kanzo, and he's like, "Let me just do something." Oh wait, no. Chiemi said she killed him.
Oh yeah, but he did mention like each time he would have been murdered, or it's at least presumed what would have happened is he just goes hides in this hole until.
Yeah, because they didn't find the body. I thought that first timeline, right?
No, they did.
When he was slashed open, yeah, but like, yeah, I assume that when Kanzo beats him up, it's to like stop him from going into the hiding place. And he does reveal that he was a wolf in the feast 8 years ago, which would also give Kanzo a reason to be after him.
Yeah, and he said it was fun. And they also use him for like doing tasks for them in the feast, because he enjoys killing people. So when someone gets the corruption, he gets to kill them. And
he distributes the wolf costumes and does the cleanup and all that stuff.
Yeah, we get like a picture of the big wolf when this happens, which I don't think quite matches.
It's a mech.
Okay, sure.
Well, what you're seeing is his evil, malicious intent.
Yeah. So Haruaki, Haruki's like, so you poisoned me, right? Like, I'm poisoned right now? And he's like, yes.
Not poisoned. You're just going to be paralyzed for a bit while I actually kill you.
Yeah.
Which is like really pedantic in my opinion, but whatever.
I'm not a monster. I just want to kill you slower.
Not poison, but poison.
It's not technically poison. I mean, you'll live. Don't be a baby.
You won't believe how much cholera is in this sake.
Oh, God. And Haruaki finally asks right before he dies, he says, are you afraid of God? Like, have you seen, and he's like, no, I don't know. Like, I haven't seen God like all these other crazy people. I'm just a murderer and I like murdering people.
Oh, well, he says that God is something men created, and everything that men created can be killed. And that's actually the important thing that gives Haruaki some kind of an idea.
That's the key.
Yeah.
We get key 1. Key 01, true evil.
Key 1 that tells us that God can be killed.
Yeah.
Anime was right all along. Anime and Sonic.
I forget when you kill God in Sonic. I must not have played that one.
There's
Chaos.
one, it's Sonic Adventure, I think, where you fight like
Iblis?
Adventure, I think? I forget. There's one where it's like, it's not literally God, but it's like some being of ultimate thing that's like...
I mean, Solaris in Sonic 06 is actually like pretty much a deity.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, pretty much all of the modern ones have some sort of supernatural being.
Remember when he just fought like a scientist guy, and you'd beat him and then he'd run away?
Yeah, it was boring.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, what do we think? I will tell you a hypothesis that I had at this point when I saw the human trafficking contract is I was like, oh, that was where Mako came from.
Oh.
She's like wearing a bag or something, and I was like, ooh, because she like, yeah. Anyway, that was my hypothesis at this point.
A sacrificial lamb.
That's not a bad one.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I didn't know what the supernatural elements. I don't know. I don't know nothing about that. I didn't know anything about that at this point. It didn't make it any clearer to me. But the sort of setup part, I was like, oh boy, well, I'm glad that at least some of this is like supernatural in the dream world and the sheep's here, because if this was all fake, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, they can't explain that with science. I mean, they can't explain the giant eldritch monster with science.
Yeah.
Watch them. We're not through it.
They can't. I refuse.
They turned all those people into Sakuras.
No, I don't think that, right? I think probably there is some like sort of other thing going on that they're trying to... Well, actually, they made it sound like really the looping was a problem for them, or no, like
the looping is independent of the feast. It feels like the feast is like a thing that existed, but this particular feast being like dragged into the dream realm is not part of the Miguruma's plan. Or maybe it is, because the Miguruma are like the spiritualists people, and like they have all these rituals and stuff. So like, are they the ones that are trying to execute a ritual of some kind?
So my thinking was that in actuality, right, like the bad person, the mastermind, is doing the looping, and basically they're like, shit, I couldn't summon the monster to destroy Japan, so I get to try again. I get to save scum. And the only time when he did summon the monster, that's when the sheep's like, whoa, there's a dream world. Like, I'll give you one mulligan on this. You know what I mean? So like, this is your one chance to undo that. But from now on, that's why he's like, don't come back here, because that's what whoever's doing the looping his ultimate goal is.
Yeah, but spoilers, the next thing you have to do is go back there with all the keys that you found.
Right, exactly. So the sheeps could be like, you idiot. He's gonna be like, but I know about the old man. Oh, was that not enough? Uh-oh, well, sorry. The end. Fire Japan. Raging loop.
So yeah, there's still a lot, like, so there's like a mastermind that we have to figure out, and this mastermind, the person controlling the dream, is not it's like somebody else separate from the...
There's a mastermind of the dream and a mastermind of the feast.
So who do you guys think is the mastermind of the dream?
I know, and I don't know if I know because of meta information. You know, I think we've mentioned it on the podcast about somebody who has a voice actor who we haven't seen speak yet, I think, or credited or something.
What?
The convenience
store? Yes.
Oh.
I think that's stupid, but, you know, whatever. That's all I can think of.
I mean, the convenience store clerk is going to be revealed to be something. Like, I feel like that's where we're doing.
I think what I mentioned about the convenience store is what I was spoiled by looking at the wiki that she had a name, like an actual name, that we didn't know yet. That's what I was spoiled about.
I was thinking at this point it was, I forget the guy, but the guy that basically said, oh yeah, you can move into Yasumizu.
Oh yeah, the Higuchi guy.
Shoji
Yeah,
Higuchi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking he was the mastermind of like the dream and I guess the feast, even though Haruaki was very confident they're separate.
I won't say who that was, but my guess at that point in the game turned out to be the correct one.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
It could just be Junko Enoshima.
Yeah, it definitely could be Junko Enoshima, you're right.
because the sheep showed up, right? Like the sheep showed up, and the sheep is like existed in the UI. The sheep showed up in the UI, so then I don't know. Sheep shows up outside the game and can deal with dreams. So there's another character that whatever. Don't worry about it. But that was my hypothesis at this point.
All right. Listen. Next time.
Next time
we finish the game.
All right. And yeah, is there a lot to go in this one?
The ending is not short, but it's not especially long. I mean,
I don't think it's as long as the reading we just did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not longer than what this reading was. Probably about the same length.
There are 3 main acts to it, and the acts vary in quality, but...
Oh, you're being serious. Okay, got it. All right. All right.
Yeah, I'll say it had the same problem for me because there are 3 acts to it, and once again, the first one is the most interesting one.
I see.
If you had all of this information, what would you do to stop the looping?
Oh, I have no idea. Haruaki's got some bullshit.
I've talked about what I think I've talked about it in the past where I was frustrated because I was like, why not just come out with it, right? Like, why not try to just be honest right from the start and be like, the only winning move is not to play. Like, we're not going to play this game, or we're going to like hold them in stalemate in some way until things start to break down because nobody wants to kill anybody.
Yeah, that's what I would try to do.
Haruaki's not that kind of guy, though. And the problem is this game is not that kind of game either, where it's
and
like...
the people are not those kind of people.
Yeah, I feel like the way this is supposed to go is it's Cassandra syndrome, where it's like he can never convince these people, but Raging Loop's gonna be like, nah, he's got a clever trick, don't worry about it, And it's gonna be something where it's like...
He sure does have a clever trick, this Loop. I will tell you that.
Yeah. And it's, it doesn't, my way would not really play into the themes of this game about how, the real, the religion becomes real because people believe it, regardless of whether it's literally real or not.
Mm-hmm.
Look, as soon as the sheep showed up, I was like, all bets are off for anything I could think up.
Well, no, the sheep's just a robot. It's fine.
Yeah, created by Junko Nishima.
Right.
I'm going to stare at God and walk backwards into a game of werewolf is the plan. But
that's this game in a nutshell, basically.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, folks,
right.
This has been a long episode because we have a lot of lore to talk about. So we'll see you guys next time for the conclusion of Raging Loop. Awoo!
Oh.
I can't believe we still do it.
The wolves are tired
so
tonight.
Embarrassing.